Hello my friends. My name is Bot Mathematician, and this is Holomancer.
And of course Dora, the most daring reporter.
We are infinitely grateful that we have another opportunity to see you all again.
At the heart of Hearthstone is a hidden structure of math rules, which limits the stats and effects of cards with mana costs.
Every card game goes beyond well-defined boundaries over time, resulting in ever more powerful cards with insane effects at a lower cost. These processes are called power creep and mana cheat. Hearthstone is no exception. Modern cards are becoming more and more powerful, but despite this, the basic fundamental rules for the functioning of cards are still respected, at least in the vast majority of cases.
This year marks 10 years since the launch of Hearthstone Alpha. We want to go back in time to explore how the cards have changed and find out what mechanics have made them more powerful from expansion to expansion. Moreover, we believe that the power of almost every card can be measured numerically. In this video, we decided to start by identifying the hidden patterns that have not changed since the announcement of the game. We are sure that you will learn about many hidden rules for the first time.
Before we begin, I would like to express my deep gratitude to our patrons. Without your support we won't be able to create new videos. Dear friends, we will be grateful to you for any help. Every like, comment, repost, channel subscription and of course sponsorship can be decisive for the continuation of our work.
Let's not waste time and talk about the main regularity. If you're a Hearthstone veteran, you're probably familiar with the term vanilla test. This is an unofficial standard invented by players to determine the relevance of minion stats. Minions without text are great for this task. The test is based on comparing attack and health to mana cost. In classic Hearthstone, stats and effects were in relative balance. If a card had an additional effect, it reduced its stats. As a rule, an ideal creature should have an additional attack or life point for a certain cost. For most creatures, the extra life point is a priority, since this allows you to make at least 2 trades with weaker creatures. This is extremely important for the control and mid-range archetypes. At the same time, aggressive decks prefer cards with increased attack.
We decided to slightly improve this approach and added 2 of our own indicators. The first is utility ratio. All base cards that meet the vanilla test have a utility ratio of 1. The second indicator is the nominal cost or maximum value. If the actual cost is depicted on the card, then the nominal value is a hidden indicator that displays the maximum benefit from using the card. Here are 3 cards with the same cost but different stats. Only the Chillwind Yeti matches the vanilla test and therefore has the same actual cost and maximum value, which means its utility ratio is 1. The rest of the creatures give slightly less benefit for their cost, which means the utility ratio will be lower. To determine the utility ratio, you need to divide the maximum value by the actual mana cost.
Here's another thought. While looking for patterns, we came to the conclusion that all 0 mana cards have an increased nominal value. There are no free things in Hearthstone. Even if you play a 0 mana card, this does not mean that you don't spend resources, since the card itself is an important resource. Because of the strict rules for drawing cards and increasing mana each turn, we believe that 0 mana cards have a hidden cost of at least half a mana crystal. We consider this value to be basic.
Despite the significant increase in the power level of modern cards, developers still do not print minions with stats that do not meet the mana cost, with the rare exception of cards that have limiting effects.
The Hearthstone team intentionally creates bad cards with a utility ratio below 1. For example, Magma Rager is a true meme. The utility ratio of this card is 0.75. This figure may even be too optimistic, since this creature has terrible stats. In practice this minion for 3 mana can be destroyed by a creature or a spell for 0 mana.
Despite the stat distribution rules, the developers initially took a different approach to 1 mana tools, since these cards are extremely important for the mana curve.
On the one hand, this is an ideal first drop, on the other hand, they can be used in subsequent early turns to invest all the mana crystals and thus make the turn more efficient. Other than that, 1 mana cards are extremely important for aggressive archetypes. For this reason, the developers intentionally significantly increased the power of these cards so that they correspond to all their tasks. Thus, 1 mana cards with 1/3 stats have become the golden standard of Hearthstone, which in addition, have an additional effect. Because of this intentional change in baseline, 2 mana cards can look too weak. Developers still continue to print cards according to this rule.
The same goes for cards that cost 6 mana or more. Developers endow them with an increased amount of potential benefits compared to the base standard, as most effects lose their effectiveness or even become completely useless in the late game.
During the evolution of Hearthstone, the bodies of creatures ceased to have a key influence on the gameplay. With each successive expansion, card effects got more and more insane, which meant vanilla test didn't make sense anymore. But we believe this approach can be adapted to modern circumstances and applied to keywords, effects, and even spells.
In the game you can find many interesting regularities. For example, let's look at a spell that deals directional damage. As a rule, for a certain cost, you can deal 1 more damage. For example, for 1 mana 2 damage, for 2 mana 3 damage, and so on. Thus spells have the ability to eliminate creatures that match the vanilla test for the same cost. Note that spells that can also deal damage to the opponent's hero do not have an additional cost, although this ability makes them much more flexible. In classic Hearthstone, such spells are rather exclusive to certain classes or strategies. Here's an interesting fact. Fireblast's initial cost during the alpha test was 9 mana and Fireball cost 5 mana. In their original form, they fully corresponded to the balance of cost and damage, but were subsequently changed. The reduction in Fireball's cost and the additional ability to deal damage to the opponent's hero is the first of many examples of power creep's formation in the very early stages of the game. Thus, the developers made certain cards a little more powerful, which led to the fact that the cards became main to certain strategies.
In modern Hearthstone, the balance of cost and damage is still respected, but spells receive additional effects.
Patterns can also be found among spells that deal area of effect damage. For 2 mana, you can deal 1 damage to all opponent's minions, which has become the golden standard of Hearthstone. Over the past 9 years, we have received many cards with this effect.
Each additional mana crystal increases damage by 0.5 damage. For example, Fan of Knives in the alpha version of the game dealt from 1 to 2 damage to all enemy minions, which means an average of 1.5 damage. Here is another example. The real cost of Lightning Storm is 5 mana due to the Overload effect. The card itself deals 2.5 damage on average, which is fully consistent with this balance. Consecration has the added benefit of dealing additional damage to the opponent's hero. Initially, Flamestrike dealt slightly more damage for its cost, but like other cards, high-cost area damage has low effectiveness in later stages of the game.
Interesting regularities can be found among the tools that draw cards. We consider the cost of the effect of drawing a card from the deck to be equivalent to 1 mana crystal, but there is no base spell in the game with this effect, since it is meaningless. Imagine that at the start of your turn you draw a spell that can draw another card for 1 mana. It would be useless for almost all scenarios. For this reason, there are a large number of 1 mana cards in the game that have additional effects that increase their nominal benefit. In modern Hearthstone, this rule is also preserved. Draw spells are a good example of our theory of summing effects. For example, Arcane Intellect is able to draw 2 cards from the deck. This effect is equivalent to 1 mana. We believe that effects that stack or repeat multiple times have an additional value. Why do we think so? In Hearthstone, the number of resources is strictly limited. Each turn players automatically receive only 1 card. If 1 card is capable of doing actions that are equivalent to using multiple cards during a turn, then such a card should have an additional value. In other words, if the Hearthstone consisted only of basic cards without additional bonuses and keywords, you would have to draw a card every time to apply a new effect. In our method, each stacked effect has a value of 1 mana, which is exactly the nominal value of drawing a card. Thus, Arcane Intellect's nominal value is 2 mana per draw actions, plus 1 mana for stacking effects, so the utility ratio will be 1, which is fully in line with classic standards.
The same logic is used in Nourish and Sprint. The new Need for Greed spell is a copy of Nourish, but has additional bonus features that bring the card up to modern standards.
In addition to the cost, developers use a variety of ways to activate effects, which helps to balance cards. For example, Death Rattle and Dormant mechanics have delayed value. Some effects have random or fail factors. In addition, there are a huge number of situational effects that receive a bonus under certain circumstances. For example, Spectral Sight draws 1 card for 2 mana, in which case your minimum value is only 1 mana. But if you played it as the left or rightmost card in hand, you can get 2 cards at a discount. In this scenario your maximum benefit will be 3 mana, which on the one hand is not up to standard. But in order to get this value, you will often have to postpone the use of the card until the right moment. Thus, all cards have an additional indicator, the level of difficulty in obtaining the maximum value. If we take into account 2 scenarios, then the average value will be 2 mana. This result will be fully consistent with the cost, the base utility ratio, and the classic pattern.
Understanding the principles of stacking effects, we can look at another example. Here are 3 classic creatures for 2 mana. The nominal value of Bloodfen Raptor and River Crocolisk is exactly the same as the actual mana cost. During the battle, they are able to kill each other. In turn, Murloc Tidehunter is equivalent to a 1 mana minion, plus it summons a Murloc Scout which is equivalent to a 0 mana minion. But these stats have a nominal value of half a mana crystal. Thus Murloc Scout has a bit more advantages compared to Bloodfen Raptor. Of course, when meeting with the River Crocolisk, one of the Murlocs will inevitably die, but the Crocolisk will not be able to take out 2 targets at once. This is also a small advantage of Murloc Scout, which is displayed in numerical form.
Here are some more examples of combining different effects in one card. The Shift spell deals 1 damage that has a nominal value of half a mana crystal, plus draws a card. Add to this another mana crystal for stacking effects. As a result you get a maximum value of 2.5 mana crystals. This figure is as close as possible to the baseline.
The same goes for Novice Engineer. Despite the different effects, these cards have the same nominal benefit and almost the base level of power. There are a lot of examples of cards that are close to the basic characteristics. Team 5 was very careful with the balance of the first Hearthstone cards. Unfortunately, under the current circumstances, the classic set is almost useless. The developers even buffed some base cards. Flamestrike damage dealt has been increased from 4 to 5. Sprint cost has been reduced from 7 to 5 mana, but unfortunately that didn't make these cards any more useful.
Although in the classic set there are several tools that still remain relevant despite their original appearance. Basically, these are cards that are able to manipulate the cost and cards with draw effects. Despite power creep, the usefulness of these cards remains very high.
Due to roughly the same level of nominal power, the differences between the cards were in minor nuances that played a decisive role in the gameplay. But at the same time, there were enough cards with significantly increased power that were auto-includes in most decks. The player had to use mana on each turn as efficiently as possible, and not just follow the plan, but adapt to the opponent's turns. For this reason, old school Hearthstone, in my opinion, is more complex than the current state of the game.
In spite of this, the main restrictions, rules and patterns still meet the classic standards. Typically, the additional effects of a card create an increase in its value and result in power creep. Of course, sometimes we get 2 strong cards that break the game or directly violate the original rules of Hearthstone. But the vast majority of cards are still in a certain mathematical balance.
After all, we can't wait to hear your opinion. Which stage of the evolution of Hearthstone do you find more interesting? Classic Hearthstone with more complex gameplay and controllable power of most cards, or a simpler but crazy modern Hearthstone with powerful effects and diversity?
Share your thoughts in the comments, and join the polls on our community tab.
Dear friends, thanks to each of you for being with us today.
We hope to be able to get in touch in the future.
Take care of yourself.
And never give up.
Job's done.